Morning everyone, it's Clive. Happy brew day. It's October morning and I've got the boiler on, as you can see, and I'm getting ready to make a batch of Punk IPA. And I had to go at this before. Now I'm going to beef this one up. I'm going to add some extra Nelson Sauvin hops. And I've got these lovely finishing hops that I'm going to use at the end. So I'm going to try and supercharge my IPA. And here we go, there's the Maris Otter. I've got 25 kg bag of that. I'm only going to use about 5 kgs in this batch. Anyway, I'll tell you all about it in a bit. Let the fun begin. Cheers everyone. My boiler went on about 7:45 AM this morning. It's now 20 past 9 and it's still not at temperature. It can actually take quite a while. The temperature went in at about 12 degrees and it can sometimes take up to a couple of hours to bring the water up to boiling point. This is the recipe I'm following today. It's a clone of Brewdog's Punk IPA. Now this comes from the Brew Your Own IPA Style guide. So this is something I got from Canada when I went there on holiday a little while ago. So what's going into my Punk IPA? Well, I'm going to use 5.3 kilograms of Maris Otter Pale Malt. At the start of the boil, with the hot boil, I'm going to use 8 grams of Chinook. Then at the end of the boil, I'm going to add Cascade, Chinook, and then I'm going to dry hop with Cascade, Simcoe and Nelson Sauvin. And I'm going to add 2 lots of Nelson Sauvin into a dry hop bag, plus also a little dry hop tea bag that I showed you earlier. This is the Maris Otter Pale Malt. This is the foundation for most of the alcohol that you get in your beer. Basically this is barley which has been malted, so this has been allowed, the barley has been allowed to germinate. That process of germination has then been cut short by calcining at varying temperatures to dry, to stop the germination, and then when that's happened the malted barley has been crushed. And you can see that white stuff on my hands, that is basically all the sugar in the malt which we extract, and that then sugar is converted to alcohol using yeast. So the water has taken 2 hours to get to 100 degrees C. What I've got to do now is let it cool to less than 80, which will take approx half an hour. Then I'm going to add 9 litres of the boiled and cooled water to the mash tun. And then when the water's in there, then I'll start adding the malt. Okay, time to add the malt. I've already added 9 litres of cooled and boiled water to the mash tun, and this is a kilo, the first kilo of Maris Otter Pale Malt that's going to go into here, and 5.3 kilograms in total will go in. 5.3 kilograms of Maris Otter Pale Malt added. I need to give this a bit of a stir because the point is that this grain needs to be in contact with the water. If it's not in contact with the water, then the sugar in the malt won't be dissolved into solution and we'll get a low alcohol content. So bear with me, I'm going to thoroughly mix this up. The malt is thoroughly mixed. I'm going to add the lid and the cover and tuck it up for an hour and a half to let the sugar dissolve into solution. There we go, the mash tun is all sealed up and I'm going to leave that for an hour and a half. Meantime, I've refilled the boiler, and by refilling it, that's reduced the temperature, what was left in there, down to about 45 degrees C. I'm going to let that boil to 100 and then cool to less than 80 again. Time to sort the yeast out, and instead of using Nottingham yeast this time, I'm going to use this stuff. It's a yeast especially for IPAs that I got from Love Brewing in Chesterfield, my new favourite supply shop. And what I'm going to do, I've boiled some water. It's now cooled to less than 30 degrees, so about 25 degrees C. I'm basically going to add this and let the yeast hydrate. These muslin bags I'm going to use for the hops, the dry hopping. This will be for the flake, this will be for the pellet, and I've got some boiling water and I'm going to sterilise them before I use them. Time to reveal the mash tun. This is one of my favourite stages of the brewing process, is when we take off the lid and oh, the lovely malty Ovaltine goodness of malted barley that's been soaked in water. Fantastic. Time to sparge through. So this water is boiled and cooled to less than 80. It's going to sparge through this fine rose from a watering can, and basically this is going to sprinkle through here and then into one of these containers. Let the fun begin. As usual, I run off the first flush of solution into a container, because this will flush out any of the bits, which that will then tip back through here, and this malt will then act as a filter bed to capture those particles before I start sparging properly. Time to start sparging. Here we go, let's turn on the water, and you can see the water, I just play it across the surface and ensure that the bed of malt doesn't get dry at any stage. So I want a thin film of water across the top of this malt, and that will then run through into here. This is washing all of the sugar from the malt into solution. Slight hiccup, this had been in the boiler, but as you may be able to see, the elements are coated. Can you see that sort of like pale looking stuff? That's sugar that's coated onto the elements, and that confuses the boiler into thinking that it's at temperature and cuts out the power supply. So if I clean that off and put this back in, that'll delay me another 15-20 minutes and I'll lose a bit of temperature. So that's quite a common problem. Okay, the sweet wort is up to temperature, and it's now time to add the hops, and I'm adding 12 grams of Chinook. Here we go, and I'm just going to dump this in, and that will stay in there for the duration of the hop boil, so that'll be 90 minutes. Okay, that's 90 minutes of hop boil. It's time to add the final hop addition. I've got 52 grams of Cascade, which I'm just going to go in, and then I'm going to add some more Chinook, and that will stay in there mixed up for 15 minutes while it cools down, and then I'll turn the chiller on. Two types of dry hopping here. I've got flake hops in this bag, and I've got pellets in this one, neatly sealed up, and I'm going to tie them onto this sterilised cup, and that'll pop that into the primary fermentation vessel, because otherwise they'll just bob to the surface. So pop the dry hops at the base of the primary fermentation bin, and that'll be filled up with the bitter wort when it's cooled down. I've got a different type of dry hop here. This is like a hop tea bag. Basically, I'm going to top this measuring jug up with boiling water to sterilise it before I add it to the fermentation bin. Okay, that's time. Let's turn off the chiller and get this show on the road. Let's pop the chiller into a container. There we go, and we'll put that down outside. Now I'll run the bitter wort, which is chilled and cooled down to less than 30, into the primary fermentation bin. Okay, so the bitter wort is safely transferred to the primary fermentation bin. I've got about 24 litres. I've got a couple of things to add. I've got my hop tea bag and I've got the hops. So here we go, let's do that. So this hop tea bag had to be soaked in half a litre of boiling water, and it says tip the whole lot in. There you go, that's in. And next I've got the yeast. Let's just do that. So all I need to do now is seal it up with an airlock. Okay, here you go, airlock's in place, and all you do is just add a little bit of water. You can see it's about half full. That's about right, so there you go, and that'll bubble when the brewing starts taking place. The sugar's converted to alcohol and carbon dioxide is generated, and it will bubble through here, and that positive pressure means no bugs can get in. So it's a week later and the primary fermentation phase has completed, and as you can see I've got my siphon set up. I'm siphoning off the initial stage into a pressure barrel. Into this I've added some beer finings, plus I've added 71 grams or 2.5 ounces of brewing sugar. This will go into here. This is my sort of intermediate step, and then I'll transfer it, and I've got 40 bottles here, washed, sterilised and rinsed, ready to receive the beer. This is what we call bottle conditioning, and these bottles will be ready in about 3 or 4 weeks' time. Okay everyone, that's the end of the Punk IPA Extra brewing. Happy brewing everyone!